The next thing we need to do is to format our article so that it's broken into different column structures, as well as starting to incorporate where we want to place different images. Now we're going to keep this relatively simple. I know that I want this first page to actually be the title page with all of the title information in one large picture, and I want to start my article on the second page. In order to do this, let's jump our article from the first page to get it to start here. In order to create this jump, let's choose our Type tool and place your insertion point right here at the very beginning. Let's go up to Type, down to Break Character, and let's do a page break. Notice now that this is going to start on the second page, and the first page is left completely blank from here. As always, we need to, of course, continue flowing this onto the other pages, so I'm going to select it, choose my little output, and then once again I can either click and drag and create it from here to place it on that second page. Now let's think about breaking this up into some different columns. Right now I've got my article flowing on a 2-column page for both of these, but it could easily be just a 3-column as well. If you want, open up your Pages panel. I don't see it over here. There it is right there. And if I wanted this second page to be a 3-column, all I have to do is to select a 3-column and then drag it on top of here. Now you can see there's 3-column structure. But my text box still isn't aligned to that 3-column structure. So I'm going to select my text box by clicking on it, going over to my Properties panel, and at the very bottom of your properties, here is where you can increase the number of columns in that text frame. I'm going to click that number up to 3. Now you can see it fits nicely in here. I can also select this page, and let's divide that into a 2-column structure. To place images, now I can use my Frame tool. Remember, with the Frame tool, in this case I'm choosing the rectangular Frame tool, you can click and drag to create the frame that you want on top of the area. Just to make it a little bit easier to see, I'm going to go ahead and fill this in with a blue. If you want to create a matrix of frames, you can select your Frame tool. In this case, if I click and drag, I can also hold down my mouse key and either hit the right or the up arrow, and this will automatically create 4 frame boxes that I can place things into. This works well if I want a 2x2, or if I wanted to do something like, I'm going to click and drag down and divide this into a whole column of 3 different text boxes or picture boxes. Whatever works best for you, that's what we can apply towards our design. Just remember, whenever you create these, we also want to try to ensure that everything fits nicely and is balanced throughout the entire page. The other thing we need to do is once we place our picture boxes onto our page, we need to turn on text wrapping. With the picture box selected, you can go up to your Control panel and choose text wrapping from one of these options. That'll turn it on. If you need to create some outside margin spacing, like for instance if we need to give it more or less room out here, let's open up our text wrap panel. Go to Window and Text Wrap. From here, I can increase the amount of padding that I need depending on what side I want it. So for instance, if I want some more space at the bottom, I can increase this number, and you can see how it increases a margin outside of that area. We can do the same over here as well too. Since we've got all 3 of these on top of the text box, I can select them, turn on text wrapping, and then finally I'm going to increase the text wrap, in this case on all sides, just to keep it from flowing in between both of those. I'll put my text wrap back over here to the side because we're going to need it later on. You can see that it's also filling up this entire column, which is okay for now. So I'm going to select this text box and let's flow it to this last page. One more time, click and drag. It places it in here. You can see how it's just a little bit of text. So in this case, I can either try to edit this to pull the text back up here, or I can try to edit my text, see if I can push more down to there. This pushing and pulling and trying to get your article to end right at the end of a page is one of the challenges of this exercise. In my case, I'm going to see if I can get my article to give me a bit more space. There's a few things that I can do to give myself more room. Probably the easiest thing I can do is to change the size of a picture, in this case this one, and pull it up. Pulling it up buys me a few inches from this edge as well. The other thing I can do is play around with the size of my body copy. Now we do want body copy to be nice and consistent on all of our articles, but if I open up my paragraph styles, with nothing selected, I can double click on my body copy option, and I can go under the basic character formats and change the font or the sizing of my font. Right now I've got it at 11 point. If I made it 10 point and I said preview, or even said OK, you can see how decreasing the size of it buys me a lot more space. In this case, it also makes it give it a nice larger feel and makes it a little bit easier to read, in my opinion. So that's one thing that can be done. Hey, while I'm looking at some of these, I also noticed that my headlines or my subheads have a little bit of an issue with them. I want them to flow nicely and have some spacing between those. So with these selected, I could change out the font, either making it larger or smaller, whatever size it is. I like the size, but I don't like the hyphenations that are on it. If you want to turn off hyphenations, you can go to your paragraph settings in your control panel and look for this checkbox towards the middle. That'll push it to the other side. Let's do the same for this one. Select it, turn off hyphenations, and if necessary, you can do a shift return, and that will break that up a little bit better. Maybe one last thing I'm going to do is to push this down and give it a little bit of a break between each side. The formatting of your subheads is totally left up to you, but again, this allows me to keep everything nice and inside of just these two spreads of margins. Let's place some pictures on here just to see what it would look like. With nothing selected, I can go to File and Place. I'm in the Made and Remade articles, and I'm just going to, in this case, I need 4 pictures. I'm going to pick 4 at random, but I'm specifically looking for some that would fit nicely wherever they're going at. So I'm going to choose this guy, this one, and let's do this guy. We'll say Open. Because I have 4 following my cursor, I can click inside of there, and automatically it'll be placed inside each of the frames. If necessary, I can click on the Auto Fit feature at the top to automatically get it to fill the frame proportionally. And then from there I can go back and recrop or reposition as needed. In this case, all I want to be able to do is to see my subject. Maybe I'll move him down just a bit so he can be seen from there. So far so good, and looking good for our different spreads. Some other small details that you can add to your page design have to do with the first column or the first paragraph that you have. If you wanted to start off with a drop cap, you can select just some of the text in the first column. Let's go to our paragraph settings in our control panel. I'm going to get rid of this first line indent and bring it back down to 0. Whoops, went a bit too far, so it gave me an error. Now that it's down to 0, I can add a drop cap by looking for this icon. This will tell me how many lines deep I want my drop cap to be, and so you can see how it's set to 3, which means the initial character is going to be 3 lines deep. Another thing I can do is to place a pull quote inside of my design. If I go back to my main page, remember we copied over all of the extra text that goes in it, and there should be 2 pull quotes per article. Each of these pull quotes can be treated almost as their own separate design or as their own separate image. I'm going to take one of these quotes and cut it away, and with my type tool, I'm going to make a new text box and paste it inside of here. With this done, I can design out this box to almost bring out this as its own individual element. For instance, we can do things like I'm going to fill it in with just a solid color for now. Just for now, I'm going to keep it as a blue. I want there to be a little bit of a margin inside of this text frame. So let's go up to Object, Text Frame Options. And inside of your text frame options, we can increase the inset spacing. If we turn it on for all of the edges, you can see how it adds a margin to all the sides that we're working from. Depending on the size that you want it to be, you can see now it has a nice little margin regardless the size of the box that I place it in. Some other things I can do is, let's change the text color to be reversed out so that it shows up really, really nice. With this done, let's jump into our article and see if we can paste it in here. To get it to show up, I could paste it right in the middle and straddle two different columns. I'm going to use my little column guides on this edge to completely line it up so that it's nice and in the middle of both of those. That looks really good right there. As with the others, let's also give it some text wrap. So with it selected, we'll turn on text wrap for the object, and then let's do some outset in our text wrap options. For this one, we'll do it on all sides and increase that amount. And then let's move it so that it's in some place that's appropriate for where we're at. Could go down there, could go up here. I think that kind of feels a little bit better. A final thing you could do, don't always have to do it, is if you didn't want to put this inside of a rectangle, you can change your object by going to Object, down to Convert Shape, and we can make it into an ellipse or a rounded rectangle, whatever fits best. Out of curiosity, let's go to Rounded Rectangle, Convert Shape to a rounded rectangle. That'll round off our little edges and sides that we have. I kind of like the look of that, so I'm going to keep it. And we'll keep it up here for now. Nice and in the center of both of those. You can see how by placing that in there, it pushes my article down and it's right there at the very bottom. So it's looking really nice to get it to fit. Again, it's all a matter of playing around with the look and feel of your design to get everything to fit nicely. Maybe one last thing I'll do is I'll put this into an italicized. Let's do Times New Roman, and we'll make it Times Italic. Oops. Got it selected, and we'll make it a little bit smaller. Now it's starting to style out really good. Since we're working with colors, we can pull some of the colors from the given images that are already here. I can use either my eyedropper tool or my color theme tool to be able to pull colors from these pictures. I like the color theme tool because with one click I can get all of these great little options. From here I can select the color that I want, and then I can click on the object to apply it to there. If I want to do it to the text, I can select it and highlight the text. In this case, let's do it to our subheads. Those look really nice. And now they're all nice and consistent. Let's get all of those to look the same too. If necessary, I could also do the background, or I could add lines and other little decorative elements to my design, but I'm going to keep it relatively simple for now. Now let's think about adding a title page to our design. As I've done with the others, I want to be able to pull on this text and place it for the first page. Your title page doesn't always have to take up the entire page. It could simply take up the first half. We simply want the title of your article to look very distinct and different, as if it's the starting point for whatever your design should be for your articles. So to get started, let's grab our rectangle frame tool, and we'll make one big rectangle on top of here. Command D to drop in a picture. Now when I look for a picture, I want to have something that gives me the ability to place some text on top of it. I don't want my text to be on top of the subject. I want to have an area that's relatively open that affords me to be able to place things without covering up something important. For instance, right here, my subject's off to the right. I could easily put some text on top of this, versus this picture that has kind of the main subject right in the center. It's a little bit more difficult to use those. I actually kind of like this one because it's nice and vertical, and it's got some open text over on the side here. So with this one selected, I'm going to place him in there. I'm going to make it a little bit larger so that he fills out. Maybe I'll even slide him over just a little bit more to give me, because I want to place my text right here off to the side. Now the title of my text, in this case, is Made and Remade Rick Kelly Master Luther. So I'm going to cut it away, And I'm going to place my text for now just inside of a text box just to see what it would look like. Of course, I can make it much larger. Since made and remade is its own thing, maybe I'll do my own design just with this text. So I'm going to cut it away. Let's go over to the side and see if we can do a design. I'll paste it inside of a text box. I'd really like to place each of these letters or words in their own text box. That'll make it much easier to be able to move things around. So real quickly, I'm just going to take some of these, cut them away, make new text boxes for each, made and remade, and then I'm going to resize my text boxes till everything fits inside of this. You can also choose fonts and typefaces that are a little bit more decorative. So let's see if I can select all of these and find a font that's already on my computer that really stands out. I kind of like this one. It doesn't have an ampersand in it though, so I'm not going to try that one. The downside of using some of the free fonts that are online is that some of them do or don't come with all of the different kinds of text. Oops, let's make sure we have it select first. So FontSpring didn't have an ampersand, but this one does, and I really like the look. It's nice, it's fancy. I'm going to hold down Shift and Command and make it larger, so this looks good. And now I can move the words directly into place. Get them to look however I want it to look. So maybe made will go here and the ampersand will go over here underneath it. However you want to design, that'll come out. Once this is done, let's place it now back into my design and see if we can size it up appropriately. You could use the guidelines that you've given. Just make sure it doesn't go too far beyond your margins. The margins are the main thing that's going to make everything stand out. Of course, with this text, the color of it or the value of it is way too dark. So what I need to do is to choose a color or a value that will show up a bit better. Now with them selected, if I was to change their value to something on the opposite spectrum like white, that still shows up, but unless I've got something that's overlapping the little guitar here. In this case, the white doesn't show up on the lighter background. What I really need to do is to have something in the background that just gives me more contrast. And so I'm going to select all of my text, and this is a great candidate for adding a drop shadow. Drop shadows can be found up here at the top, especially if you click on the effects. You can choose drop shadow, and you can dial in the settings that you want from here. For instance, I want my opacity to be just a little bit more darker and maybe not so far away from the text. We'll get it to be right on top of it and we'll spread it out a bit more. Now when I say OK, having that drop shadow behind those lighter areas really makes it stand out. Let's do the same for this text down here. I bet I could get away with making that text white and a little bit smaller. And I'm even going to make it as all caps or small caps. I think small caps would work. We'll get it to set up right there. Perfect. The final thing it needs to have, of course, is the byline and the introductory text. The byline can be found here. And nothing says we have to keep it exactly the same, but we'll pick this up. Whoops. I'm going to grab my regular eyedropper tool. Let's just do it this way. I'll select my Master Lutherer text. That font is Minion Pro 21. We'll do the same here. Minion Pro 21, but we'll keep it small caps. Now, the introductory text that we have, this is meant to set off the rest of the body copy. You don't have to always have it on your title page. You could have easily just put it on the original page. So I'm going to set this inside of its own text box, and give it its own design, just as if it was a pull quote. In this case, maybe I'll make it, we'll start it off as body copy. So I'll open up my body copy settings. Maybe I'll make it a few points larger, and I'm going to increase my leading to let it out. Final thing I'll do is also turn off the align to grid so I can align it however I want. I do still have the same problem as with my other text. I want this to be able to fit nicely and be seen. So in this case, maybe I'll give it a background color of black, or I can pick up a background color of one of the colors in here. So maybe this dark blue. We'll set my text color to be white. So now it shows up. I don't want my text to be right on the margins of my little box that I created. So let's go up to Object, Text Frame Options, and give it some inset spacing. That'll pull it in, looking nice. I think this is another great candidate to do times italic. So times italic. Now it looks and seems really different from here too. What would it look like centered up? Not too bad. Maybe I'll keep that. And we'll make this a little bit smaller. Again, I like the look of it. Let's see if we can take it one step farther and get the colors to blend. I don't like the starkness of that color in the background. I really want to see some of the picture. In order to do this, I could go up and either get a tint or an opacity of it. If I just drop the opacity of my thing, it's going to drop the opacity of my characters or my words as well. So I don't want to do it this way. I just want to drop the opacity of my rectangle. So let's click on the Effects and open the Transparency panel. Inside of this panel, this will allow me to do the settings for the entire object, or in my case, I just want the fill of the object to be selected. If I was to drop the opacity now, you can see the fill of the rectangle gets lighter while the text stays 100%. Another thing I could do is to change my blending mode to something like multiply, and that really shows up. I think a good blending between multiply and dropping the opacity gives me something that looks really, really nice and also fits well with the style that I'm going for. Backing out, I see everything is nice and balanced. I've got a good design for my title page. Everything is on there that looks good. Again, if necessary, your introductory text could easily be placed inside of your other page too. If you can either put it on top of a picture, or you can put it in the front of your article that you're working on. In my case, I think it actually works better as the front page. The last little details that we need to do are to fix the headers or footers that you have and then save it up as a PDF. Please remember at this time, you need to do 2 articles. So before I do save up anything, make sure you're adding on your second article right at the next page on your design. So you can place a new article here, have the first page or even the first spread be the title page, and then flow your article on whatever other pages that are necessary. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through this. Let's just look at our headers now. If I go over to my article title, since this is part of my master page, I need to unlock it. I'm going to hold down Shift and Command and click on my header. From here, I can actually type in the article title, Made and Remade. You don't have to do the subtitle for the main title, just Made and Remade is enough for what we're doing. On the other side, I've got another little bit of a problem. First off, I'm going to move my article out of the way so I can see it, my photo out of the way. Again, Shift and Command will let you click on it to unlock that. Let's type it out. And I'm going to bring this to the front. Object, arrange, and bring to front. Now when I move my picture back into place, well, my text box is there, but I've lost my text. The reason for this is because my picture still has text wrap. As a matter of fact, if I move my text box out of the way, you can see the text there, and it's just being pushed out of the way because that's why I've got my text wrap turned on. we need to tell this text box to ignore the text wrap. So with it selected, go to Object. One more time, go to your text frame options, and let's tell it to ignore text wrap and say OK to this. Now my picture or my header shows up on top of my picture. I can select it, and I can even change the formatting or do whatever is necessary from there. All right, with that done, I've gone through, I've got my entire article fitting nicely on this 2-page spread. I've got my pull quotes, my introductory text, as well as everything necessary for my title page. Everything looks nice and balanced. And again, you can play around with the settings for the balance and placement of pictures. And I've strived to keep my article fitting nicely towards the end of your page. You don't want to have too much of an open gap. Remember, 2 articles is what I'm looking for this page layout. So the next thing you need to do is repeat this whole process of placing a second article on the remainder pages. When you are finished, you can go into your design and you can erase away any unnecessary pages. So for instance, if I had several pages left over, I can simply select them, go down to the very bottom and hit the trash can, and it'll delete those pages away. To save your design, save it as an InDesign file. This InDesign file is what you'll upload, but let's also create a PDF. So let's go to File and Export. Make sure you know where your PDF is being saved to, and that you've got Adobe PDF print version selected. We'll click Save. If you choose Spreads, this will create a PDF that has both the pages side by side. You don't have to turn on all of your printer's marks or the bleeds. I just need to be able to see the spreads that we've got. When we click Export, you can watch it at the top up here and be able to export. And once it's finished, you'll also upload the PDF to the class page.